Los Angeles, 1972. No, not Los Angeles. Not this time. Not the city that has become so thoroughly associated with Bruce Lee that it is easy to forget he moves through other cities too, other gyms, other mornings that are not California mornings, but something different. Something with a different quality of light, and a different quality of air, and a different specific weight to the silence before the work begins. Houston, Texas, March 1972. A private gym on the west side of the city, the kind of space that exists in every American city in the early 1970s, rented by the month, used by serious people who need a place to work without an audience. Concrete walls and rubber mats, and the particular quality of stillness that settles into a room before the first movement of the morning breaks it. The stillness of a space that has been prepared for something and is waiting for it to begin. The stillness of 6 in the morning in Houston in March, when the city outside is still deciding whether to be fully awake, and the gym inside has already made that decision on behalf of everyone in it, which is currently one person. And that person has been here since the decision was made and is not waiting for the city to catch up. Bruce Lee is here because Enter the Dragon pre-production has brought him to Texas for 2 weeks of meetings and location consultations that have nothing to do with what he actually is, which is someone who trains every morning, regardless of where the morning finds him, someone for whom the absence of his regular gym in Los Angeles is not a reason to interrupt the work, but simply a logistical problem to be solved. And he has solved it the way he solves everything, which is directly and without excess, by finding this gym and arranging to use it in the early hours before the city outside has fully committed to being awake. And he has been here since 6 in the morning, and it is now 7:30, and the work has been going for 90 minutes and is nowhere near finished. The work having its own internal logic that does not consult the clock, but simply continues until it is complete. The work at 7:30 on a Tuesday morning in Houston in March 1972 is the specific work of someone for whom training is not a preparation for something else, but the thing itself, the central activity around which everything else is organized. The daily practice that has been the fixed point of Bruce Lee's life since he was a teenager in Hong Kong, and that has not been interrupted by success, or by film schedules, or by the specific gravitational pull of a life that has become larger and more complicated than most lives. The work continuing through all of it, the way a river continues through the landscape it passes through, the landscape changing around it, and the river remaining the river. He is working combinations on the heavy bag when the door opens, moving through the sequences with the specific quality that his movement has always had, and that people who watch him for the first time invariably struggle to describe. The quality of someone for whom speed and precision and power are not 3 separate things being combined, but a single thing that cannot be separated into its components without ceasing to be itself. The combinations landing with the flat, authoritative sound of real contact, each strike placed exactly where it was intended to be placed. The bag responding with the specific arc of something being worked by someone who knows precisely what they are doing and is doing it completely. The rubber mat absorbing the specific footwork of someone who has spent 20 years learning how to use the floor as a resource rather than simply a surface to stand on. He does not look up immediately when the door opens. He has been here for 90 minutes without interruption, and the door opening is an interruption he was not expecting. And his response to it is to continue what he is doing for 3 more combinations before stepping back from the bag and turning to see what the door has produced. What it has produced is a young man, 21 years old, standing in the gym entrance with the specific combination of confidence and uncertainty that belongs to someone who has located something they very much wanted to find, and is now in the immediate presence of it, and is processing the gap between wanting to find it and actually having found it. The gap that always exists between the imagined version of a thing and the real version of it. A gap that is sometimes disappointing and sometimes the opposite of disappointing. He is not tall, but he is built in the specific way that boxers are built when they are young and serious about their work. The lean functional muscle of someone whose body has been shaped by a specific discipline rather than by general fitness. And he is carrying a gym bag and wearing training clothes, and his dark curly hair is slightly damp from the Houston morning outside. And he is looking at Bruce Lee with the expression of someone who grew up watching a person do something extraordinary and is now standing in the same room as that person and is finding that the room is smaller than the screen and the person is larger than the image in a way that the screen never adequately prepares you for. His name is Tony Danza. He is 21 years old. He has been a professional boxer. He does not lead with any of this. He leads with what he is, which is at this moment entirely a fan, crossing the gym floor toward Bruce Lee with the specific energy of someone who has something important to say and has been waiting for the opportunity to say it and is not going to waste the opportunity now that it has arrived. He says that his name is Tony. He says that he is Bruce Lee's biggest fan. He says that he has seen every film, that he has watched every available footage, that Bruce Lee's approach to martial arts has changed the way he thinks about movement and speed and the relationship between a body and the space it occupies. And he says all of this with the genuine, unguarded enthusiasm of someone who means every word completely and is not performing admiration, but simply expressing it. The specific quality of real admiration that is different from the performed kind, the way real things are always different from performed things, which is that it does not require any particular response and is not angling for one, it is simply true, and is being stated because it is true, and the specific quality of this truth is visible to Bruce Lee, who has received enough performed admiration to recognize immediately when what he is receiving is not performed. Bruce Lee listens with the complete attention he gives to everything, nodding slightly, receiving what Tony is saying with the specific quality of someone who has heard admiration many times and has not become either dismissive of it or dependent on it, but simply receives it for what it is, which is one person telling another person that something they did mattered, which is always worth receiving properly regardless of how many times it has been received before. He thanks Tony. He says it the way he says things, without performance and without excess. The genuine acknowledgement of someone who understands that what was just offered deserves a genuine response. He asks how Tony found this gym, and Tony explains that he is in Houston visiting family and that he heard through a connection in the local martial arts community that Bruce Lee was using this space in the mornings, and that he came on the chance that Bruce Lee might be here. And Bruce Lee listens to this and nods with the expression of someone who finds the initiative interesting without being entirely sure yet what to do with it. At this point in the conversation, Tony Danza is simply a young man who found him in a gym in Houston and told him he was his biggest fan, which is something that happens with enough regularity in Bruce Lee's life that it has its own established shape, a shape that usually involves a brief warm exchange and a departure, the fan having obtained what they came for, which is the confirmation that the person they admire is real and present and human, and Bruce Lee having given what was asked, which is acknowledgement and time. But Tony does not follow the established shape. He says, "I want to learn from you." He says it with the specific directness of someone who has decided that the opportunity in front of them is too significant to approach indirectly, who has understood that the distance between where he is standing and what he is asking for is large enough that only a direct approach has any chance of covering it. And the directness itself is a kind of information, the specific information of someone who does not waste the moments that matter. Bruce Lee looks at him. Not the polite look of someone processing a request they are about to decline, but the specific assessing look of someone who has just heard something that activated their genuine attention. The look that means the conversation has shifted from one category to another, from the category of fan encounter to the category of something that requires actual evaluation. He says, "You want to be my student." It is not quite a question and not quite a statement. It is the specific verbal act of someone confirming that they heard correctly before deciding what to do with what they heard. Tony says yes, and the yes is unambiguous and unhesitating. The yes of someone who has thought about this before this moment and is not improvising the answer. Bruce Lee is quiet for a moment, the specific quiet of someone running a calculation that has several variables and is not yet complete. And then he says something that the gym and the rubber mats and the concrete walls and the Houston morning outside will hold in the specific way that spaces hold things that are said inside them, which is completely and without record. He says, "Before I take anyone as a student, I need to understand what they bring." He says, "Show me what you have." He pauses. Then he says, "Hit me." He points to his own shoulder. "Right here," he says, "as hard as you can." He says it with the specific, even quality of someone who has made this offer before and considers it a reasonable test, a way of learning something true about a person in the most direct way available, bypassing the categories and the self-descriptions and the claims, and going straight to the physical fact of what a person can actually do when they are asked to do it completely. Tony looks at the shoulder. Then he looks at Bruce Lee's face. Bruce Lee's face is carrying the specific expression of someone who has made an offer they consider reasonable and is waiting for it to be accepted or declined, the expression that contains no particular anticipation of what is about to happen, because what is about to happen is simply a test, a data point, a piece of information that will help complete the calculation that is still running. Tony has been in boxing gyms since he was 16 years old. He has been trained by people who understood the mechanics of power generation at a level that most people who use the word punch have never approached. And his body has absorbed that training the way bodies absorb things they are given daily for years, which is completely and below the level of conscious thought. The technique no longer something he does, but something he is. The specific physical fact of 5 years of serious boxing work living in his muscles and his joints, and the specific geometry of how his weight moves when he decides to move it. He does not think about any of this. He does not think about being 21 years old in a Houston gym, standing in front of Bruce Lee, who has just told him to hit him as hard as he can. He simply looks at the shoulder, turns his hips, and throws the punch the way he has thrown 10,000 punches before it, which is completely. What happens in the fraction of a second that the punch travels from Tony Danza's fist to Bruce Lee's shoulder is the specific transfer of 5 years of professional boxing training arriving at a single point with the full committed weight of a 21-year-old body that has been taught exactly how to generate and deliver force. The technique correct in every particular, the hip rotation complete, the shoulder behind it, the fist arriving at the target with the specific quality of contact that separates a trained punch from an untrained one, which is that it does not stop at the surface but continues through it, the force transferring into the shoulder rather than dissipating against it. Bruce Lee receives it, his shoulder receives it. His expression in the moment of impact is not the expression he was wearing before the punch, which was the assessing expression of someone running a calculation, but something different. Something that moves across his face in the fraction of a second after contact and is visible to anyone paying attention, which is the specific involuntary expression of someone whose body has just received information that their expectations did not prepare them for, the specific physical fact of a shoulder that hurts, in a way that Bruce Lee's shoulder has not hurt in a long time, the specific message of a properly thrown professional punch, arriving at a body that was not braced for a properly thrown professional punch because the body did not know that was what was coming. Because Bruce Lee placed Tony Danza in the category of fan and kept him there even after Tony asked to be his student. And the category of fan does not prepare a shoulder for what just arrived. He takes one step back, not a dramatic step, not a step that announces itself, simply the specific small adjustment of a body that has received an impact and is redistributing its weight in response. The involuntary, honest response of a physical system to a physical input that was larger than the system anticipated. He puts his right hand to his left shoulder. He looks at Tony Danza. Tony Danza is looking back at him with the expression of someone who has just done exactly what they were asked to do and is waiting to find out what that means. The expression carrying a specific quality of uncertainty that was not there before the punch. Because what Tony felt in the moment of delivery was different from what he expected to feel, which is that the shoulder he hit was real, and the resistance it offered was the resistance of a real body, receiving a real punch, rather than the specific controlled resistance of a supervised exercise, and the specific physical feedback of the delivery told him something about the impact that he is still processing, something about the gap between the person he was hitting and the person he expected to be hitting. Bruce Lee looks at his shoulder. Then he looks at Tony. Then he says, in the specific even tone he uses when something has genuinely surprised him, which is rare enough that the tone itself is notable to anyone who knows him, "That was a very good punch." He says it not as a compliment in the social sense, but as an assessment in the technical sense. The flat, accurate delivery of someone reporting what they observed. And then he says, "Where did you learn to hit like that?" And the question is the specific question of someone who has just received information they did not have and wants to understand its source. Tony tells him. He tells him about the gyms in Brooklyn where he started, about the trainers who saw something in him when he was 16 and invested time in developing it, about the years of work that went into the specific mechanics of what just arrived at Bruce Lee's shoulder, about the professional bouts, about the record, about the decisions that led him away from boxing and toward the uncertain territory of what comes next, about the specific education that 5 years of serious boxing provides to a body that is paying attention and does not waste what it is given. He tells it plainly, without performance, the way people tell things when they are simply reporting facts rather than constructing an impression. And Bruce Lee listens the way he listens to everything, completely and without interruption, his right hand still resting on his left shoulder, his expression moving through several things as Tony speaks, things that are visible but not easily named, the specific sequence of expressions of someone receiving information that is changing the shape of what they thought they knew about the situation they are in, information that is arriving late but arriving with the specific additional weight of things that arrive after they should have, which is that they carry with them the awareness of how different things might have been if they had arrived earlier. When Tony finishes, Bruce Lee is quiet for a moment. Then he says, "Why didn't you tell me this when you walked in?" The question is not accusatory and is not rhetorical. It is the genuine inquiry of someone who wants to understand something. And Tony says, "Because I didn't come here as a boxer. I came here as your fan." And this answer lands in the gym with the specific weight of something true, said simply. And Bruce Lee receives it with the expression of someone who has just been given a piece of information that reorganizes something he thought he understood. He moves his shoulder in a slow circle, testing the range, feeling the specific ache of a joint that has been properly introduced to a serious punch. The ache that is different from the ache of a hard training session because it comes from outside rather than from within, from something that arrived rather than something that was produced. And this difference is notable in the specific way that the body notes differences between things that are similar but not the same. He looks at Tony with the expression that his face wears when something has earned his complete attention, which is calm and direct and carrying a quality of focus that the people who know him recognize as the expression that precedes something significant, the expression of someone who has finished receiving information and is now deciding what to do with it. He says that he has been training for 20 years. He says that in 20 years of training, he has worked with many people, some of them extraordinarily skilled, and that what just happened to his shoulder is not something that happens often, and that the reason it does not happen often is not because people cannot punch, but because the specific combination of technique and power and timing that Tony just demonstrated is not something that most people who say they can punch actually possess. The combination requiring not just physical capability, but the specific kind of physical intelligence that develops only in people who have been serious about a discipline for long enough that the discipline has become part of how they think, rather than just part of what they do. He says all of this in the even unhurried tone of someone making an accurate report, and Tony listens with the specific quality of someone receiving something they were not expecting and are not sure yet what to do with, something that is landing differently than the admiration he came here to express, landing in a different part of him, the part that receives professional recognition rather than personal appreciation. He then asks Tony to show him more. And the next 40 minutes are unlike any 40 minutes the Houston gym has previously contained, which is two people who have just discovered something about each other that changes the available possibilities between them, moving through combinations and responses, and the specific physical dialogue of bodies that know what they are doing and are finding out what the other knows. The conversation happening in the language that both of them are most fluent in, which is the language of trained bodies responding to each other in real time. A language that does not lie because it cannot lie. Because the body reports what it knows and what it does not know with equal accuracy, and there is no way to perform competence in this language that the other body does not immediately detect. What the 40 minutes reveals is not a hierarchy, but a conversation. Two people who have developed serious expertise in adjacent disciplines discovering the specific places where those disciplines meet, and the specific places where they diverge. The places where boxing and kung fu arrive at the same solution through different paths, and the places where the paths lead to genuinely different destinations that are each correct within their own logic. Bruce Lee watches Tony move with the specific attention of someone who is learning something, and this is not a posture he assumes often, the specific physical posture of the student rather than the teacher, and it sits on him with the particular quality of something that is both unfamiliar and genuinely welcome, the quality of someone who has been the most knowledgeable person in most of the rooms they have entered for long enough that encountering genuine knowledge they do not possess has become an event rather than a routine. Tony moves through the session with the specific combination of his own confidence and a developing awareness of what he is in the presence of, the awareness building in real time as the 40 minutes progress, as each exchange reveals something new about the person across from him that his existing understanding of what a martial artist can be did not contain. When they stop, it is because both of them have reached the specific state of having extracted what the session had to give. the natural ending of a serious training exchange that has run its full course. And they stand on the rubber mat in the Houston gym with the specific quality of two people who are in a different relationship to each other than they were 90 minutes ago when the door opened. The relationship having been built not through words, but through the specific physical vocabulary of two trained bodies spending time in honest conversation. Tony says that he would very much like to continue this, that he would like to learn from Bruce Lee if Bruce Lee is willing to teach him, and he says it with the specific directness that he has used since he walked through the door. The directness of someone who has decided that this opportunity is too important for anything other than complete honesty about what they want. Bruce Lee looks at him for a moment. He is looking at Tony the way he looks at things when he is making a decision rather than running a calculation, the specific inward quality of someone who has all the information they need and is now simply deciding what to do with it. The decision having a shape that was not visible at the beginning of the morning and is fully visible now, shaped by 90 minutes of a session that neither of them planned and both of them needed. He says, "You are not my student." He lets this land for a moment, and Tony's expression receives it with the specific quality of someone absorbing a disappointment they were half expecting. The expression of someone who came here hoping for something and is watching that hope reconfigure itself in real time. Then Bruce Lee continues. He says, "You are my teacher." He says it with the specific flat accuracy of someone making a factual statement rather than a gracious one. And the distinction is important and audible and changes everything about how the words land, because they land not as consolation, but as recognition, not as the generous reframing of a rejection, but as the honest report of what the morning actually produced. He says that every person who walks through a door carries something that the person already in the room does not have, and that the specific failure he made this morning was to see Tony as a fan rather than as a person, to place him in a category before understanding what the category could not contain, and that the punch that is still making itself known in his left shoulder is the specific cost of that failure, and that the cost was worth paying because what it purchased was this, which is the understanding that the young man who said he was his biggest fan was also, in a specific and important way, his teacher, carrying something in his body that Bruce Lee's 20 years of work had not produced and could not produce because it came from a different direction, from 5 years in Brooklyn gyms learning something that Kung Fu does not teach. And the specific physical intelligence of that something arrived in Bruce Lee's shoulder this morning and will be felt there for several days. And every day that it is felt, it will be a reminder of what the morning contained. He says, "I will accept you as my student." And then, with the specific weight of something that is both an ending and a beginning, he says, "And I expect you to keep teaching me." Tony looks at him for a long moment with the expression of someone whose morning has produced something so far outside what they came looking for that the categories they arrived with are no longer adequate to contain what they are leaving with. And the Houston gym holds this moment the way all rooms hold the moments that matter most, which is completely and without record, available only in the bodies of the people who were present, carried forward from that Tuesday morning in March 1972 in the only form that true things travel, which is in the specific physical memory of what it felt like to be in that room when those words were said. A memory that does not fade the way other memories fade, but remains present in the body long after the mind has moved on to other things. The specific weight of a Tuesday morning in Houston that began as an ordinary Tuesday and became something that neither of the two people inside that gym had words for yet, though both of them would spend time finding the words, the way people always spend time finding words for the things that matter most. Long after the morning is gone, and the gym is gone, and the city has moved on. The way cities always move on, indifferent and ongoing, carrying everything forward into whatever comes next.